Have you ever noticed something strange?
You can spend 3 hours scrolling through your phone without feeling productive, yet the moment you sit down to do something important, your brain suddenly feels exhausted.
You tell yourself you'll start in 5 minutes. Then 30 minutes pass. Then an hour. And by the end of the day, you've convinced yourself of one thing. I'm just lazy. It's a painful belief. Because if you're lazy, then the problem is you. Your personality, your character, your lack of discipline. But what if that's completely wrong? What if you've been blaming yourself for something that isn't your fault?
Think about this. When a laptop has 20 applications open at the same time, it slows down. Not because it's lazy, not because it's broken.
Because it's overloaded. Now ask yourself, how many tabs are open inside your own mind right now? The email you forgot to answer. The bills you still need to pay. The conversation you keep replaying. The project that's already behind schedule. The appointment you must remember. The dishes in the sink. The messages you haven't replied to. The goals you feel guilty for abandoning. Your brain isn't carrying one task, it's carrying hundreds. And unlike a computer, there isn't a button that lets you close everything at once. Today, we're going to uncover why so many people mistake mental overload for laziness, why rest often doesn't make you feel rested, and why the real solution isn't trying harder, it's thinking differently. Imagine taking someone from 500 years ago and placing them in your daily routine. Within the first 10 minutes, they'd probably be overwhelmed. Notifications, emails, news, social media, advertisements, deadlines, texts, phone calls, infinite choices. Our ancestors certainly had difficult lives. They faced hunger, disease, dangerous animals, and unpredictable weather. But one thing they didn't have was a constant flood of information competing for their attention every second of the day. Today, before you've even had breakfast, your brain may have already processed more information than someone centuries ago encountered in an entire week. And here's the problem. Your brain hasn't evolved nearly as fast as your technology has. It still runs on hardware designed for a completely different world. A world where paying attention to one thing at a time increased your chances of survival. Now your attention is constantly being pulled in dozens of directions. Every notification whispers, "Look at me." Every email says, "This is urgent." Every social media app promises something more interesting than what you're doing. Individually, these interruptions seem harmless. Together, they're exhausting. And here's what makes this dangerous. Mental exhaustion doesn't always feel like exhaustion. Sometimes it feels exactly like laziness. You don't want to start the task. You avoid making decisions. You procrastinate. You keep switching between activities without finishing any of them. From the outside, it looks like a motivation problem. But inside your brain, it's often an energy problem. Trying to force yourself to work while mentally overloaded is like pressing the gas pedal in a car that's running out of fuel. You blame the engine, when the real issue is the empty tank. Imagine someone hands you a backpack. At first, it's empty. No problem. Then they place one book inside. Still manageable. Another book, a bottle of water, a laptop, some groceries, a few tools. You barely notice the added weight because each item is small. But after a while, the backpack becomes almost impossible to carry. Now, imagine if every unfinished thought, every responsibility, every promise, every decision was another object placed inside that backpack. That's what your brain experiences every single day. Psychologists often call this mental load. It's the invisible effort of remembering, tracking, planning, anticipating, and worrying. The exhausting part isn't always doing the task. It's carrying the task in your mind. Think about how many unfinished loops your brain is holding on to right now. I need to schedule that appointment. I should exercise. I forgot to call my parents. I need to reply to that message. I have to finish that report. I should clean the apartment. None of these thoughts requires much effort on its own, but together, they create constant background noise, like dozens of browser tabs silently consuming memory. Even when you're relaxing, even when you're watching Netflix, even when you're lying in bed, your brain never fully lets them go. That's why you can spend an entire weekend doing almost nothing and still wake up on Monday feeling strangely tired. Not because your body never rested, because your mind never stopped carrying the backpack. And here's the surprising part. Most people respond to this feeling in exactly the wrong way. They assume they need more motivation, more discipline, more productivity hacks. But if the backpack is already too heavy, why would adding more pressure help? In fact, it often makes everything worse. Because the real enemy isn't laziness, it's overload. Here's something that confuses almost everyone. How is it possible to spend an entire evening doing almost nothing and still wake up exhausted? You came home from work. You watched YouTube, scrolled through TikTok, checked Instagram. Hours disappeared. Yet somehow, you don't feel refreshed. You feel even more tired. Why? Because your brain doesn't measure rest by what your body is doing. It measures rest by how much mental effort it's still spending. Scrolling isn't rest. It's consumption. Every few seconds, your brain processes something new. A new face, a new opinion, a new piece of bad news, a new emotion. Your body may be resting, but your attention never is. It keeps running from one stimulus to the next. That's why passive entertainment often leaves you feeling empty. Your brain wasn't recovering, it was simply doing a different kind of work. Real recovery is different. It's quieter, slower, less stimulating. Sometimes the most restorative thing you can do feels almost boring, because your brain has forgotten what silence feels like. Most people think motivation disappears randomly, but often it disappears predictably. Think about your morning. Should I hit snooze? What should I wear? Coffee or tea? Check my phone? What's for breakfast? None of these decisions seem important, but every decision costs something. Not time, mental energy. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. The more choices you make, the harder it becomes to make good ones later. That's why a workout feels easy in the morning, but impossible after a long day. Not because you're lazy, because your mental battery is running low. This is why many successful people simplify their lives. They wear similar clothes, follow routines, eat the same breakfast. Not because they lack creativity, but because they save their energy for decisions that actually matter. Your brain is like a battery, not an unlimited power source. Spend it on hundreds of tiny choices, and don't be surprised when you have nothing left for the goals that matter most. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to forget something you haven't finished?
an awkward conversation, an unfinished project, an email you still need to send. Your brain keeps bringing them back, again and again. This isn't a flaw, it's a survival mechanism. Your brain treats unfinished tasks like unanswered questions. It keeps them active because, from its perspective, they're still important. Imagine trying to watch a movie while someone keeps tapping your shoulder. Don't forget your taxes. You still need to call your mom. Remember that project? Eventually, you can't focus on the movie anymore. Not because the movie is boring, because your attention is constantly being interrupted.
That's exactly what happens inside your mind. Every unfinished task competes for your attention. Every postponed decision takes up space. Every unresolved problem becomes another tab left open.
Eventually, your mental desktop becomes so crowded that even starting one more task feels impossible.
That's why people mistake overwhelm for procrastination.
The problem isn't that you don't want to start. Your brain is already busy, trying to manage dozens of unfinished loops at the same time. No computer performs well under those conditions. Neither does the human mind. Sometimes progress doesn't begin by doing more. Sometimes it begins by carrying less.
Most people believe motivation comes first. They think one day they'll wake up feeling inspired, ready to change their life. So they wait. Tomorrow, next Monday, the perfect moment.
But that moment rarely comes, because motivation isn't the engine, it's the reward.
Think about the last time you cleaned your room. Before you started, it felt overwhelming. But then you picked up one shirt, made the bed, cleared the desk.
And something interesting happened. You started feeling better. Not because the room was finished, because your brain noticed progress.
Progress creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation, not the other way around. This is why waiting to feel ready is so dangerous. An overloaded brain sees every big task as a threat. The bigger it looks, the more resistance you feel. Not because you're incapable, because your brain is protecting the little energy it has left. Your brain doesn't need more pressure, it needs more space. If mental overload is the problem, then the solution isn't becoming tougher, it's becoming lighter. Think about that laptop again. When it freezes, you don't yell at it, you close what's already running. Your brain deserves the same treatment. Start by getting everything out of your head. Every unfinished task, every reminder, every random idea. Write it down. Your brain was built to solve problems, not to store them. Next, reduce unnecessary decisions. Create simple routines. Automate the small things. Save your energy for what truly matters. Then, protect your focus. Every notification, every endless scroll, every pointless argument online, they're not just stealing your time, they're spending your mental energy.
Finally, finish small things. Reply to the message. Wash the cup. Cross one item off your list.
Every completed task closes another mental loop, and every closed loop makes your mind a little quieter, a little lighter, a little freer. Over time, those small steps create something that once felt impossible. Clarity. Maybe you've spent years believing there was something wrong with you, that you were lazy, undisciplined, unmotivated. But what if you've been solving the wrong problem all along? Imagine carrying a backpack filled with bricks every single day. After a while, you stop noticing the weight. Until someone asks you to run. You try. You can't. so you blame yourself. But maybe the backpack is simply too heavy.
That's what mental overload does. It convinces you that you're failing when you've simply been carrying too much.
So the next time you struggle to begin, don't ask, "Why am I so lazy?" Ask instead, "What am I carrying that I haven't put down?" Because that question changes everything. You don't need endless discipline. You don't need more pressure. Sometimes you just need to give your mind room to breathe. Because you're probably not lazy. You're mentally overloaded.
And once you understand the difference, you stop fighting your brain and start working with it.
Understand your mind. Change your life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.